So my new level, the world border, just came out, and this is probably my most ambitious and experimental level yet. It started off as a mega collab with me and some other talented creators, and the prompt for everybody's parts was to pretty much just build whatever you want. 2 parts were made, but as the Discord group chat got slowly less and less active, we all just kind of assumed the level is dead. I'm not a great collab host if you couldn't tell. But one day I stumbled upon the old layout for the first 3 parts. My goal was for every part to have its own unique gameplay gimmick, and looking back on the layout, I didn't want it all to go to waste. I started by decorating the first structure of the layout. It was difficult because I wanted to do 2003 Devon style, but also wanted it to be unique as well. I actually had such a hard time with this one block design that it took me a whole day to make. One level that really inspired me though was Landshark's part, and this level name I really don't know how to pronounce. But yeah, this part is pretty cool and inspired me a lot while I was making this level. But once I finished that design, as well as the assets, I was pretty much on a roll from there. The gameplay gimmick for this part was that the gameplay would slowly move up and down, altering some jumps. Honestly, I'm really proud of this gimmick. I think it's a nice introduction to the level, and I've never seen it done like this before. But I did make some stuff harder to decorate. I started the background with the sunset above the water that is lazily similar to my old level Lumen Lab. I made it really purple because I wanted a big contrast between the sky and the blocks. Also because I think purple and yellow just looked good together. I also tried this thing. Supposed to be a mountain, but we don't talk about that. I then made this weird scaffolding looking thing, inspired by this asset that zooms quickly across the camera. This looked like garbage, but I knew I still wanted to do something like this. So then I went with this pillar design to match the pillars in the block design. And then I used a motion blur shader trigger just to add blur to the layer the foreground is on, so it looks like it's right in front of the camera. Also, I made this parallax effect just by making a collision trigger loop, where you have the pillar constantly move to the left of the collision block, and when it hits another block that's locked to the player, it moves back to its original position. But the foreground looked pretty weird by itself, so I decided to go with the temple-like theme and add another pillar background layer. This was surprisingly hard for me. I started with this, but it looked like shit. But then I settled with this as the finished part. Some final touches like pulses, an orb effect, and my signature, and it was time for the next part. A lot of this level is inspired by music artists I listen to. Throughout the whole level, there's tons of references and nods to various artists. As you transition into the next part, you can spot the first one. All my fellow vamps out there would know that this I Am GD text is a recreation of the font seen on Playboi Carti's unreleased I Am Music album cover art. This is also used in a lot of promotional material, which is what really inspired me to put it into the level. While we're here, let's talk about the end screen, as the stretching effect on the text was also inspired by the album cover. For everything else, I just messed with scale triggers until I got something that looks cool. But I knew from the start that I wanted to do the stretch effect for the heading of the text. Also, huge shout out to Jero for making this awesome end art of me that you can see in the background of the end screen. I mean, this shit is unreal. Oh, and by the way, this end screen used to be fucking ass. Anyways, with the end screen out of the way, let's move on to the second part. This part is probably the most widely liked part in the level, and I can see why. I got inspired by a bunch of UFOs and spaceships in Lil Uzi Vert's Chill Bay music video, so I wanted the part to reflect that. I was also inspired by this part in Alika, where these machines shoot out spikes at the players. But more specifically, I was inspired by how each one was different from each other. I wanted to make a bunch of different Star Wars and Lil Uzi Vert inspired spacecrafts. After a while, I created 6 different spaceship things, and I think they look great. For the block design, I was inspired by this old level I made a while back, but this was also around the time I started becoming a fan of audiovisual, so I tried to make a hybrid of his and Devon's style, and after some embarrassing attempts at a block design, I got something I was happy with. For the ground spikes, there isn't much to talk about. I kind of just put stuff down and it worked out pretty much first try. For the background, on the other hand, it was way more complex. I took inspiration from that one old arcade game, I forgot the name, but I'll put it on screen, and I knew I wanted a background like that from the start. I started with this design for the background segments, but this would be way too detailed with too many of them, and also be very unoptimized. So I stuck with this way more simple version instead. From there, it was just trial and error with move triggers until I got the effect I was looking for. I sent the part to some friends, and they gave me some feedback that made the part look way better, and after applying the feedback to the part, it was finished. Part 3 is probably the most unoriginal part of the level. I did a blend of Sim Whamley's block design and Devon's older stuff, and I came out with this. The gameplay gimmick here is whenever you hit the bottom or top of the screen, you'll come out on the other end. This is probably the most straightforward part of the level, so there isn't much to talk about. For the background, I used the warp tool, which is insane by the way, and some glow to make this like circle brick effect thing. I also used this warp trigger to create the indent effect on the pillars. Other than that, there isn't much more to this part. It was pretty much just a recreation of your average old 2003 Devon level. This is the worst part of the level in my opinion, but I still don't think it's too bad. I wanted to have a break part halfway through the level, and I think I achieved that pretty well. This next part is interesting, and probably the most disliked part of the level. I got inspired by the Callback part in Future Funk 2, and tried tried to attempt a callback part as well. The gimmick for this one though was instead of the gameplay slowly moving up and down like the first part, there would be some parts of the gameplay moving in the opposite direction as well. For the block design of this part, I simply copied the assets from the first part, changed some designs and added more detail to them. I did some stuff like make the windows circle instead of squared, changed the designs on the stone bricks, and replaced the big clocks with this flower thing. And I'm really happy with how this turned out. Also, I used a color trigger to desaturate some of the blocks, depending on which way they moved. This really helped make it easier to read, and also just looks nicer. Some people thought this part was lazy though, which is definitely understandable. The background is pretty much just a recoloring of the first part, apart from this moon that I textured with blending glow and 2.2 objects. And for the pillars, I couldn't think of any way to change them, so I just copied them straight from the first part. Changed the color and called it a day. Looking back at this part, I did wish I did more with the background pillars, but other than that, I don't think it was too bad, especially for my first time trying a callback part. Before we start talking about the next part, let's talk about this text right here. This is a reference to the rapper Yeat's 4L album cover, but it transitions from the world border text to GG. I don't really know what else to say about this, I just thought it was cool. Anyways, on to the next part. We finally arrive at the last part of the level. The gameplay gimmick for this part was that a blue orb would follow the player's Y-axis with a slight delay. This gimmick is pretty fun, and if you use some other game modes apart from the ball, I think you could make some pretty cool gameplay. But for this one, I only used the ball game mode. For the decoration of this part, I took the little bit of theming I built throughout the whole rest of the level and threw that shit right out of the window. To give some context, a while back I thought of this idea where it was like 2003 Devon style, but with really high contrast. But then I let another creator, Simwim, use the idea for his level Necros instead. I always knew I wanted to revisit this concept though, and I thought that now that I'm trying out new stuff in this level, this would be the perfect time to do it. The background was inspired by the fucking Spotify Wrapped of all things. You know, those animations that go with the Spotify Wrapped? Yeah, that. Which just shows that you can find inspiration from really anything. It looks good too though, and it's surprisingly simple. Just scaling glow on the x-axis and repeating it over and over and over again. Very simple, but probably my favorite background on the level. But the block design in the background looked weird, like they were blending together too much. So I put glow, arrows, and dots behind the blocks to separate the two. The glow went through some color changes though. I started with red, then black, and then ultimately landed on a darker red. After some final touches like orb decoration, my signature, and an annoying spam part at the end, the level was done. Overall, I'm really happy with how this level turned out. Usually after like a week, I start to dislike my levels, but that hasn't happened with this one. It died once, and even when I started building it again, I never planned to finish it, but I'm really glad I did. Some people didn't like the level, while other people really did, and I feel like the mixed opinions just add to the weird atmosphere of the level. Anyways, to put it shortly, this level was ambitious and a step in a different direction, but I'm happy with how it turned out.
Maybe we don't want it too short, because then it has to be hard. I don't know, okay, this is not happening. That shit is impossible.
Fuck, let me drink some water. And that's the video. Thank you so much if you gotten this far. This is my first video like this, so sorry if the editing was bad, or especially me reading off the script. It probably either sounded like I was sick or had a speech impediment or was just like cringy as shit. I'm still working out how to like read scripts and shit because this is the first video I've ever written a script for, and most of the time I don't talk or sound like this in real life. But yeah, other than that, I do want to expand my horizons with YouTube like I did with the weird layout video that I made recently. But you know, I'm terrible at keeping up with promises. I was technically supposed to have quit in GD by now, and you know how that turned out. So yeah, I mean, it could go anywhere from here, but thank you for watching this video, and catch you on the flip side.